Good afternoon. Welcome to another Super Secret Project sketch. This is Eric Whalen from Super Secret Project X. I hear you. And kind of a quiet, low-key day today. I'm gonna try to not stab myself in the face with a light there. Gonna try to do something a little bit more ambitious today, not by much. It's warm. There's the things going on, and we all know about the many things, the way too many things. And I have decided, and it's not even necessarily one of my favorite characters. However, I did find her interesting. I'm going to do the original Catra from She-Ra, and my plans are to do the new Catra from the new She-Ra next week. In many ways, she was either really cool or just dreadful. I hated the voice acting, and it's nothing against the voice actress. They made her obnoxious. Nowhere near as bad as Scorpina, which was horrifically bad. I didn't even like her design in the original version. But
It's a scorpion, right?
yeah, in that case, to me, it's a matter of just sort of like if you like the old or the new, is whether or not you like the old or the new Catra. Scorpina? Scorpia?
Scorpion.
Scorpia. She was dreadful in the original version, so the new version of her is wonderful in every way. I much prefer her. Catra, on the other hand, it's sort of a matter of taste. If you like that weird old 80s sort of glam rock version of her, ain't nothing wrong with that. That's the version we're doing today. I do like elements of her design. I like the fact that she turned into a giant cat, something the new version doesn't do. And so I'm gonna do more of a head and shoulders today. So I'm gonna get the rough shapes down here.
It's funny, the action figures. I actually had the action figures. I had two. They had two different versions of her, and they made. I think they did like a re-release of several of the characters in She-Ra and my Catra, and there was the original Catra, which had like a gray fluffy tail that actually was attached to the figure. I'm trying to think, was it two different versions of her? Crap, I'm blanking on seeing if that was, but I know the original figure had a little lever on her back that had controlled her arm, and when you would pull the lever, it made her arm swoop down like she was scratching and made a noise like she was like scratching
Really?
something. Yeah,
That's kind of fun. Well, it's funny is when I was growing up, He-Man, which was shown way more than She-Ra in my area, wasn't necessarily one of my favorites. But I watched it and I liked it. But it wasn't like one of like the big ones that I watched. When I got older and they put it up and all that, and I rewatched it, I'm like, this is just fun. He-Man. But I got to see like half an episode of She-Ra when I was a kid, and then I was like, oh well, She-Ra's on. Let me rewatch this. All I could remember was how ridiculous Bo was. Something that they sort of fixed in the new version. I like the new version of Bo better, but he's kind of a goofy, hammy character no matter what you do.
He was always in the original, of course, he was supposed to be She-Ra's like love interest, foil, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Well, love interest, and they put it into that real quick.
Yeah, it's he's not a terrible character. I like the idea of sort of the Errol Flynn handsome sidekick guy. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, and then the new version, they mixed a little, I guess, Kid and Play in with him, I suppose. Well, he's got like the fade. Is that his hair or is it a hat? Have you noticed that it's sort of... I know, but have you noticed there's like a rim and it always looks like it's sitting on his head?
It's supposed to be like the shaved sides.
Yeah, but it's not like faded in. It's like it suddenly that steps out a little bit, and every single time I see it, it bugs me. I'm like,
Also, no, it's the style of like when they would like in the '90s when they did the design cuts in the hair.
no, no, I get that, but when I saw people with the fade or the design cuts, it still had like a smooth line that ran up into the hair. His literally like comes out like he's wearing a hat, and it just bugs me because I keep going like, no, just that's okay, fine. Whether you like '90s fashion or not, that's up to you. But I always liked that like the black fashions that fade that went up into like the straight lines and stuff. I just thought that well, it looked like a cartoon, so I liked it. I was like, oh, right on.
Yeah.
I wasn't like an R&B or like a rap guy or anything, but I was like, no, that's pretty awesome. Gotta make sure she's got that crazy thin bony jaw that was either attractive or just uncomfortable looking, like she could stab you to death with it.
Yeah, to this day, I would always I wondered why in the world did they choose the voice direction with her? 'Cause I mean,
Oh, she was
I-
bad.
I
She was
wanted-
better than the Scorpia, but she was bad.
I wanted because I liked the character, like I said, I had the action figure and stuff, and I wanted to like her so bad because I loved cats and like, oh, it's a cat lady thing, yay!
Yeah.
And but her the constant
They were pushing the cat thing too hard.
yeah, and it's oh man, I mean, did they? I'm trying to think.
If they pulled it back by 50%, I could have stuck with some of the wackiness, but it was constant.
Yeah, I was trying to think. Was there like even a worse a comparison in He-Man? And the closest I can think is Skeletor with his
Yeah, but that was awesome.
that
Beastman's
you know, and
kind of sound he made.
and then yeah, I'm not too sure why they did that. 'Cause I know with She-Ra, it's like well yeah, with She-Ra it was the same thing. Why I was annoyed with not this not the sorceress, crap, the evil magic lady.
Oh, Evil Lyn?
No.
Evil Magic Lady, not Evil Lyn.
In She-Ra, Dark
Oh,
Hooded
in
Lady.
She-Ra. Yeah,
Did it see?
oh my god.
It hit you too.
Dreamweaver.
Shadow Weaver.
Shadow Weaver. There we
Shadow.
go. That's
Dreamweaver's a
Dreamweaver.
song. That's a song.
Yeah, I was about to say. I was like, that's
So-
almost right.
70s song. In Shadow Weaver, it was like, in She-Ra, that was the same thing with her character, how I liked her voice, but I hated the fact that every time she talked, she started with this. And
It worked sometimes,
again,
though.
yeah, it's like, yeah, sometimes it worked, but hearing it every single time.
It was a little much.
Yes, it's like, it's like, yes, we know this is the character. It's like, and I know this is their character
Thing.
pattern of talking and all, but it's like after a while it just got, at least to me, it got so annoying. And I actually liked the character's voice, but hearing that constantly it was like to me it was like she was
Trying too hard.
no, it was like she was just annoyed to be there. Like, okay, Shadow Weaver, yada 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 yada.
Dang it! Try to get into the Shadow Weaver.
Why do I have to do this again?
You know, to me, there's a lot of debate whether you prefer the old or the new version, because some of the new character designs in the new series were really good, and in some cases I preferred them. Some of the old ones, though, were kind of wonderfully ridiculous and over the top. But to me, the one that I have a hard time seeing an argument against was the original Shadow Weaver. As simple as it was so much more, I don't know, scary, cool. Like the new one, there's nothing wrong with it. But I liked that like weird druid look the original one had.
If they could have taken that design and put it into the new She-Ra with the new character's voice, because her voice,
Yeah,
was
the
like,
voice is good.
Her voice was super.
Yeah, I like that.
creepy and just if they would have just did that instead of just kind of. I know they were going to redesign everything, but I mean, I think they would have succeeded with having a bit more of the original element of that.
I totally love a lot of what they did in the new version. But there was also some stuff where I kind of felt like I wanted them to use just a little bit more from the original series, and I'm not talking much because I think they did a lot of good stuff. But I'm also kind of going like, I kind of felt like they immediately went, let's just recreate a lot of this whole cloth, which in some cases was a good thing, but some cases it was like, Shadow Weaver was just great. I loved the way she looked. She was this bizarre. It's like you didn't know if she was a sexy floating corpse or what she was. She was so weird. Hordak needed work. If they were going to try to recreate Skeletor, I'd be like, no, Hordak needed work.
Yeah. We actually have a few people watching.
Oh, do we?
Yeah, Persephone popped in.
Hey, Persephone.
And Alfredo.
Alfredo?
Al.
Al. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, honey, my ears are bad. Hey, Al, how's it going?
That's his full name, Alfredo.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's actually.
I was like, I'm sorry, I'm a little hungry, and I know we have Alfredo sauce in there. I'm sorry, my brain was like, what?
Hey, Al.
Hey, Al, how's it going? Hey, Bob. I ended up like watching, and we're not done with the new She-Ra yet, and the thing that I liked about it is the problems that were in the first season, like exactly the things I'm like, this is an issue, they fixed. As a matter of fact, my only real criticism was, no, keep all the girlies, silly, sparkly, I'm fine with that. I don't care. That's cool. But when She-Ra's headbutting a tank, I really want her to headbutt that tank. I'm just saying, that's I need that. And they put that in the later stuff, and I'm going like, yeah, I want to see a 7-foot-tall Amazon whooping some tuchus. That's all I'm saying. If you're gonna have a show about an Amazon whooping tuchus, I better be seeing some tuchus whooping. I don't want to see it like cheesed for the kids. Oh no, it's okay. You shouldn't headbutt tanks because kids at home don't slam your head into armored vehicles. It's like, come on, kids know it's a giant robot or a tank. They're not gonna actually like.
No, they will, because while they won't do it to a tank, they will do it to each other.
Oh no, see, that's different. They'll do that anyway.
Exactly.
So who cares?
But they don't want to put the responsibility on us if kids have.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Alfredo. I'm sorry, I'm just digging the Alfredo. I kind of feel ripped off. I haven't been calling him that all these years. Alfredo. It depends upon your taste. I personally think that there's a lot of really good stuff in the new She-Ra. Mm-hmm. However, there's also, let's just say, some social things that they did that some people might not groove with. There's a lot of gender and sexuality stuff in there that they're just slipping in. That I don't care. In some cases it worked really well. In other cases I didn't quite get it. But so I could see how some people would not like it. I personally thought that if you enjoyed the original one and you can divide yourself from the original show and go, this is a whole new version, then you might be good. Because honestly, they did some neat stuff. Like some of the major villains are no longer as important. Some of the minor villains are now much more important. There's actually a story. Whereas the original one had like a story, but it never really went anywhere. This one has a beginning, middle, end story. So I totally dig the fact that I actually get to see characters develop, and He-Man has nothing to do with it. They have so far made zero, and I haven't seen the end of the series yet, so I don't know. They so far, which is where they break from the original, wouldn't care. Yeah.
That's his son. one of his sons.
Nice. Wouldn't care. He'd headbutt anything. A little like Shiro from Voltron, which I personally had no issue with. I think they actually should have gone into it a little bit more to make it a little more solid. But this one feels like they're going into it a little bit more. So there's more gay couples in it. There's one character where you legitimately cannot tell what sex the character is, and that's up to you how you feel about that.
They're gender fluid.
Okay, gender fluid. I'm ancient at this point. I don't get the newfangled stuff. The thing that I liked about it is they made the character gender fluid. They also took the character and made them unbelievably obnoxious, but in a way that was so evil. Like this is one of the most evil. Like just like you can go, this person's a sociopath. This isn't like they're making like a hey everyone, check out this gender fluid character. It's, dude, whatever this is a psycho. And there's moments where you're like, I hate this character, and there's other moments where you're like, where's this character going? And it's kind of,
well, just as their gender is fluid, so is their morality.
that character's got some issues.
Yeah, they did a good job because I was, and this is like from a personal standpoint, I was torn with the character because they made a character good enough where I actually had a physical reaction of, I don't like this character.
And that was because of writing, not because of what the character represented.
Yeah,
the character
exactly.
was a jerk.
Which was what the other side of me was just like, I was like, okay, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable with this because it felt like it was almost falling into the stereotype of making the evil person a non-conforming. And a lot of times back in old tropes, the non-conforming person was immediately the evil person. But I can't really say that because Noelle Stevenson, as far as I know, I think she either is gay or bi. She's the creator of the show, and a good portion of the workers on the show are also or they're, I won't say gender fluid, but they are non-conforming gender-wise, either gay, lesbian, bi, blah blah. And so it's like, knowing that they are writing this, they are purposefully putting that out there, so I can't go, okay, I'm uncomfortable because I don't have a right to be, because I'm just like, oh, well, if they're doing this, then they're writing their story. So I'm like, oh, I'm fine with it. But it was still that one part of me was just kind of like, ooh,
well,
for like a second.
I actually don't fall into the category of being angry at that. I get angry at that if it's every single time and it's hyper insulting. Then I'm like, you're just being a jerk. You're just being a jerk. I look at it in very simple terms. I still say my two favorite Bond villains were the gay assassins in Diamonds Are Forever. And I know a lot of people were like, they were insulting, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, they nearly killed Bond like 3 or 4 times. I mean, that's saying something. That's a dangerous set of characters. And some people are like, oh, they were insulting. I'm going like, look, I thought they were cool, man. I mean, yeah, they were a skosh too fruity at moments, but look at the time period. Mm-hmm. To me, I'm like, I just care about the story and if the character is interesting or not. And when I mean that I disliked the character, I mean that takes writing to do that. Yeah. I disliked the character, and not because it was what it was. It was because it was like this individual's a jerk.
They genuinely made a very not likable character. And I was like, I was proud of them for doing so, because very rarely do I watch shows where the bad guy actually
makes you angry.
It actually gives me a visceral reaction. So I was like, I applaud them because they got me on that one.
Well, there's a few moments where that Double Trouble, right?
Double Trouble, yes.
The character's name is Double Trouble. That legitimately that character, you're going like, this individual's a sociopath. I don't think a psycho, but they are of an emotionally different mindset than everyone else. And you're like, this is kind of a portrait of a scary, shallow, empty person. And a lot of people be like, well, you can't say that, blah, blah, blah. It's a, representing a different kind of. I think this individual was written that way.
No,
They're
he-
scary. They're far more scary than most of the villains.
Yeah, they weren't representing a particular gender. They're representing evil people.
Oh yeah, total psycho. And that has nothing to do with whatever gender, whatever sexuality. Let's put that all off to the side. Had nothing to do with that. This person was disturbing at moments, which was, you could just see how much fun they were having destroying people's lives.
Yeah.
like just like giggling, like watching kittens play, like but with destroying people's lives. And so you're just going like dude, dudette, whatever. I'll just say dude. It's an asexual term. Dude, you scare me. And then they did like Catra as a villain is a much more interesting version than the original. I kind of like the glam rock version, which was the original version, just because of really the design. Because she really didn't do anything interesting.
Besides from turning into a
cat,
giant panther.
which for a young kid
Yeah,
is good enough.
Like I said, for me, I loved her character. Like she turned into a giant black panther and can fight. I was.
That's actually one thing that I was kind of missing from the. And I didn't say that they have to have Catra do that. I was just kind of going like, oh, I'm missing kind of the giant battle cat kind of thing going, which is not battle cat, but you know what I'm saying. The additional like, oh, the villain's got a crazy battle cat on their side. Right on, you know.
The only thing I really didn't care much for the new Catra is I didn't care much for the what they call the heterochromic eyes.
But
Thank you. Summertime brings
Yeah.
out the douchebags, the douche bros. The heterochromic eyes, the two different color eyes.
I got used to it.
Yeah, same here, but it's one of those things where
It felt like it was too much, though.
it felt kind of fan characterish. And
It did.
Yeah, and I'm not a big. I mean, I like the idea of it, and I've seen the real life version, and it's kind of cool.
Well, especially, you also see it in cats a lot, which is why I didn't.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is why I got used to that incredibly fast. I'm like, oh, okay, they're doing
Yeah.
a thing. That's cool.
But yes, Al, the new She-Ra is pretty good.
I think it's fun.
Yeah.
But I don't know everyone's tastes real well, so, you'll watch it and you'll get it. What I can say is I feel as if the first season is the weakest one, and we're in the final one now. We're most of the way through it, and I gotta say they're actually now taking some risks storytelling wise and doing some interesting, and you get to a point where you go like, oh, like about characters, like suddenly you're like, I suddenly understand why she was reacting like that.
Yeah.
Or, like, oh, her character, what was the thing that was making the character do this was not what I thought it was. And there's these wonderful moments where you kind of get oh, okay, this is why this character was unlike a lot of the original cartoons, which
continuity doesn't happen in a lot of
well,
the
it's
cartoons.
also character depth, and things that are emotionally important were super dumbed down back in the 80s, which is fine. Sometimes that was really awesome because of it, because you'd get really fun shows. But that's what I kind of like about some of the new shows. They might be doing stuff that some people may not like and be telling like, you can't watch that, Billy. That's not for you. That's up to the parents. I could see why they might react. But I'm also kind of like, there's interesting new things happening with characters. Whereas the old stuff, it was, most of the characters were the same except for the voice actor. They basically all acted the same. The villains basically all acted the same. The heroes in many ways acted the same. This one, there's I'm not going to be like super deep, dude. It's super deep. No, but it is pretty good. And there's a couple moments where you're like, oh, like, okay, that's why that's happening. And they're not like shoving it in the screen and explaining it for 5 minutes. You're going like, oh, said character emotionally is this. Oh, I didn't realize that. You know.
Yeah, the show, it doesn't go super, super deep with a lot of the lore, and
But it goes a little deeper than the original show.
yeah, I'm saying just in general compared to a lot of stuff that we've been watching and liking. Like it doesn't go into like Avatar.
No, it does not go that deep.
Or like or even like like you mentioned Voltron, either Voltron or
Voltron. Voltron went deeper.
yeah. And like Steven Universe. It doesn't go into those areas of like that far deep in lore, but it's a good just kind of I don't want to say it's not basic, but it's a good,
It's a light series, but it's a light series with a couple interesting things happening.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones where I'm just like, okay, I'm glad I watched this. I thought it was pretty cool. Like I said, for me, it's like something like with Airbender. I'm just like, oh, dude.
Airbender is legendary. Voltron will be probably loved for quite a bit. She-Ra is good, but I don't think it will reach, legendary status. I think it will be on many people's lists of favorite, like, fun shows, you know. Yeah, character depth is good when it happens. In my opinion, every character should have at least a little. If they're completely paper thin, I have a tendency of not caring. But I'm also like, not every show needs to go into hyper depth. It's just it's not always necessary.
Well, that it doesn't if they don't have time to do so.
It could get in the way of just the fun, and some shows are just meant to be fun.
Yeah, it's like with for instance, the show that's on Cartoon Network. We don't have Cartoon Network, but I've seen it. I watched it on streaming, and when we did have Cartoon Network, I watched it also. We Bare Bears.
That was a good one.
Fun, cute show, lighthearted. But they did some moments
There's a handful of them,
went
though.
really, really deep. Where I was just like, wow, it's like I think I showed you.
Well, they pulled a Futurama on you.
Oh.
Out of nowhere,
Yeah.
suddenly like a handful of really deep episodes, and you're like,
yeah, the one.
What was that?
The one I showed you with
Yeah.
with
the burrito.
Yeah.
The burrito up. Yes, the burrito episode is a super deep episode, and you're like,
We Bare Bears. Yes, if you're gonna watch something. Watch a few of the episodes and then watch the burrito episode.
the We Bare Bears. We Bare Bears is really fun, and once I have a chance, I'll get into it more. I watched a couple seasons, but I haven't seen all of it yet.
Yeah, they have there's a TV movie because like with the success of the Steven Universe TV movie, they're now doing that for We Bare Bears too. So,
Oh, are they?
Yeah, saw that advertised on one of the cartoon blogs that I usually hit and stuff like that. They were talking about it. They were talking to the creator about what's going on, so I saved it for later to read and stuff. But
I'm trying to currently reduce the Maleficent look that is happening here.
Yeah, Voltron was amazing.
Yeah, Voltron was really good, especially because I openly have a problem with shows where it is constant power creep. And then it gets bigger, and then they punch harder, and then it goes faster, and it's not about the plot, it's about the power. And I'm like, I just get so bored with that. It usually takes a show that's really fun at the beginning and then just makes me roll my eyes and stop watching it. And so, the end of Voltron, which went so over the top with that, but they went so over the top in a direction that I've never seen, where you're like, well, they basically created a scenario that nobody can top. This is so save the universe times a trillion, where you're like, oh crap, that's ridiculous. And then you're kind of like, all right, now I could deal with that. That was a little ridiculous. They went a little over the top. Right on,
Yeah, Voltron's one of the shows where I want to rewatch again because I just had a fun time because it's spaced out so long as far as getting the new episodes and stuff. I would just sit down and rewatch the entire run again, like and I don't want to say in one because I'm not a good binge watcher.
That's too much.
But I want to watch it again in chunks so I can watch everything cohesively again.
Well, I thought they did smart things in it. Like they did stuff where they're like, it's a giant robot fights the monster of the week show, where they very rarely did the giant robot fighting the monster of the week. And my favorite was a season where a good chunk of the season was the giant robot ain't in it. We can't use the giant robot. People have to be, people and not just the things that make the giant robot move. And I was like,
Al says, fun fact, Sokka and Lance were voiced by the same actor and both characters lost their first love. Yep, that is very true, yes. Shoot, what is his name? I know the actor's name. Crap, it's right there. But yes, I know that, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yes, that's very true. Another fun fact for you,
Oh,
Al.
poor Sokka. Even in his reincarnation in a sci-fi series, he still can't get lucky.
And his girlfriend turned into the moon again. I'm kidding.
Oh, and his second girlfriend turned into the seed of all infinite universes. He got an upgrade, dude. What the heck is up with that?
That's rough, buddy.
My girlfriend turned into the moon. That's rough, buddy. My girlfriend turned into the seed for all infinite realities. That's rough. That's rough, buddy. Like what the heck? That is I didn't even realize that. That is good stuff.
Yep.
That's rough, buddy.
Another fun fact about the voice actors, I don't know if you watch Steven Universe or Al or whoever's watching, but the actress who voices Princess Allura was also the voice of what was her name? The big blocky crap.
Jasper.
Jasper, yeah. She was also the voice of Jasper, which that's one heck of a voice range when you think about it.
Well, I was also like, when I saw the woman that the Toph voice actress grew up in, I was kind of like, wow.
Yeah.
Hey, Toph.
Jessie Flower, which is not her real name, actually.
It better not be.
Yeah, that was her kid's name.
Sounds like an adult film star name.
Oh, that was her kid name.
Oh, wow. I'll take that statement back.
He will say you better. That's Sokka's voice actor and Lance's voice actor, Jack Sena. That was his name, yeah. I was like, I know
I thought he sounded familiar. It's just, I guess it just didn't occur to me.
Yeah.
You know, the funny thing was, I was going like, they visually kind of ripped off Sokka with this character, and his voice actor went right over my head. I should have... Wow.
I know there's a bunch of other voice actor facts that I have tucked away somewhere, but they're hiding right now because I love voice acting. That would be like if I hadn't become because I wanted to stay in the arts no matter what, but voice acting was actually one of my career choices at some point in life, like that or a ninja.
I wanted to be the coyote.
Wile E. Coyote, super genius.
Wile E. Coyote. Super genius. I don't have a high enough IQ. That, I don't like running around in the middle of, the day with no clothes on, setting off dynamite
Well, you
while starving.
Let's say you like 2 out of those 4 things.
Yes. Not arguing.
Al says, "Oh my, Eric."
Oh my. Oh my. Oh my. See if I can get a little bit more shoulders in here. Alright, as I am now here. I just love... it's funny. People go like, ha ha ha, look at that time period. Look how dumb they were for doing blank. And then you got the people from like that time period going like, shut up! I love that thing! It's like, no, I always thought stuff looked ridiculous, okay? However, I also look at time periods going like, dude, that's what was awesome about that time period. In 60s fashion shows, they dressed women in orbs. That's awesome. It's ridiculous. It makes 0 sense. It's awesome. 80s over the top mega hair
Giant shoulder pads.
Giant shoulder pads.
Tight
Of
pants.
course it's ridiculous. Of course it's ridiculous. It's also awesome because they did that, you know, and
It was funny how the high hair of like the 60s and 70s, which started a lot of the what was it, a lot of the
the mega beehives.
yeah, that went up into, that came into the 80s and stuff, that went from conservative to the punk. And I just remember the phrase, the higher the hair, the closer to God.
There you go. And I always go back to it as my favorite example. I find things funny generally because of perspective. And because somebody of a perspective, not because they were ignorant or they were great or they were whatever because they said it, but because their perspective dictated that they said it. So, the Captain America line. Ma'am, there's only one God, and he don't dress that way. And I'm just in the theater, I was like, it wasn't laugh out loud funny, but it is still one of the funniest things, because it was this wonderful perspective thing.
That's Captain America.
That's Captain America, and that's why that was awesome.
Oh, way to go, Al. They're introducing the kids to Avatar. That's good stuff right there.
That is a good show, man.
That's a good show to show the kids, yeah. And I'm glad they're liking it, because that's one of those shows
So
where
good. Well, it's not only good for kids. It keeps getting better as they keep getting older because they keep now understanding more. Because that's actually, honestly, a series with depth.
Well, it's one of the few series where you can honestly say and truly say it's all ages. And it is timeless.
And that's what gets me about the Disney all ages BS. We make this for the family. No, you make it for the kids, so the adults have to buy the tickets. And yes, the artwork is real pretty. And every once in a while, yes, they do make a good movie. But overall, you're like, this is not family. This is for children. Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra, though slightly higher age group, that's all ages. That is so good. And it's for boys, it is for girls, it is for everyone.
Exactly.
And I know some people either roll their eyes or they didn't think about it, but I just love it, and I'm not loving it because I think everything has to be this way. I love it because I love variety. Aang was one of the first effeminate male main characters in a series. And then Steven Universe came after, which was very effeminate, not 100%, but you know, he was a little mama.
Well, Sal, I'm not sure if effeminate's the right word. I'd say more.
Well, it's in there though.
Yeah, I'd say it's more.
He's definitely super in touch with his feelings. I mean, even Toph was like a stud by comparison.
I'm gonna say more emotional than, and I don't even want to say that, because emotional, like a lot of people, when you say emotional, people think of people losing control and stuff. Yeah.
When I see Aang, I see a very effeminate, and I'm not saying that negatively. I'm saying that I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to think, but that for some reason it doesn't feel like it's the right word. But I know exactly. I know what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying. Yeah.
And Steven Universe isn't effeminate, you know. But that's fine. You know, that's, as a matter of fact, with him it was even fun. Actually, both of them had their opposite foils, which was great. With Aang, it was Toph being the masculine female, even though she had girly moments, like he had boy moments. Mm-hmm. And Steven Universe, his girlfriend, even though is effeminate, is like the dude of the couple, which I'm just sitting there going like, I don't care. I thought it was really entertaining. Should it all be that way? No! But the fact that we get some little variety here and there is kind of awesome, you know.
It's just breaking. It's breaking the
stereotypes.
The gender stereotypes and the perceived molds and all that.
And that stuff gets boring when it's done over and over again.
I mean, growing up, I was a serious tomboy, and in some aspects still am.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that's it exactly. But it's like it's one of those things where if we had the outlook of what we have now for when I was growing up, I think I would have been a bit more. I was going to say balanced, but I think I would have been a bit more confident in a lot of things
Well,
because
yeah, because you're seeing examples of different various ways of being. Not saying they're right or wrong, just saying that there's different ways of being and people can be different ways. And back in the old days, and I'm not condemning it, but when you got too much of one thing, it got old. It was just like you just felt like guys have to be like this, girls have to be like this. And I tell you what, there's a lot of female characters in older series that I love that I just can't stand them because they were written like little cardboard cutouts that they put lipstick on. And that was so hard. Even as a little kid, I was like,
which is one of the reasons why I did not care for most quote unquote girl cartoons growing up because they were all about pink and making everything
it was
pretty
too much.
and sparkles and
not to say that pink or sparkles is bad, but when it was all that way, it was so.
When it was made for the sake of this is what you're supposed to be, and I said,
That's what
screw
irritates me.
You're not telling me what I'm supposed to be. Like I'm gonna go and watch me some Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, exactly right. And I remember, and I didn't see a ton of it, but I remember there was My Little Pony was on TV in the 80s or whatever. And I was like, and I thought I only saw a handful of episodes, but I recall thinking it was fun. I didn't like Backflip, but I'm like, oh, this is actually kind of awesome. Blah blah blah.
I watched a little bit of it. I didn't too much care.
It, like I said, I wasn't like backflipping over it, but I was like, oh, it's kind of fun. It's a little different, yada yada. And like people, like the boys were like, what? I'm going like, all right. I also watch G.I. Joe. I also watch, He-Man. I also watch, Dungeons and Dragons. I watch all these shows, but give me some freaking variety.
I really wish that somebody like Pluto TV, and they probably just don't have the money for the licensing, but I wish that somebody, or like them, because they have different live channels, like 24-hour channels that they stream stuff on, would make just an 80s cartoon channel where they just show all of those from everything, not just from certain channels or certain groups. I mean, literally, like you said, show. I want to see Dungeons and Dragons again.
Yeah, I do. I do.
See,
I never did get to finish it.
I want to see Dungeons and Dragons followed by Care Bears, followed by Thundar, followed by Shirt Tail. I want to see all that stuff.
Well, here's the thing: this is how much variety I want. I want stuff like Steven Universe and blah 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 with the stuff that, frankly, some people are uncomfortable with. That's their issue; they can have it. But I enjoy watching some of these shows. I also, by the way, want an adventure military series like G.I. Joe again. And I loved that stuff. That stuff was really fun. And
oh, thank you.
What happens now?
The last line. Oh, well, tell Alex I am
nice.
Really, yeah, I am touched. That is so sweet.
Yeah, and Al's right. Aang is one of the first real pacifist heroes.
Yep.
And that was actually the thing that I really loved was the moment in the last series where everyone was gung-ho about Aang going off and killing the Fire Lord. Mm-hmm. And he's sitting there going like, I don't think you really understand what you're saying. And they're like, no, we do. You need to go basically murder this dude. And he's going like, and it was a character that legitimately went, I can't do that. I'm sorry. I can't. He's awful, but he's a fellow living being. We can't do that to him. Mm-hmm. And instead of there being like a whole bunch of people going like, yeah, we're going to go murder the bad guy, and everyone agreeing, or a bunch of people going like, maybe we could give him a cupcake and he'll be nice again. And everyone goes, yay! And then they give him the magic happy cupcake and the bad guy changes his mind. And you're like, this is bull. And it was nice to see both types of mentalities on the screen at the same time having that discussion in a serious, like, the main character just can't bring himself to do that kind of way. Right. It just... I knew this headdress was gonna get me. This headdress is something that I never quite cared for, and I'm not entirely sure
And I always wondered, did the mask, was it an enchanted mask that
I think it was an enchanted
that made
mask.
her change, or
That was always my
or was
assumption.
she just magic and it just that was like her totem to get her
That
to
could be
change?
it.
'Cause I mean, because that was the thing that got me in the show. She didn't have a tail, but on the action figure, she had a tail. And I was always a little confused about that. It was, I can understand why they didn't do it, because that's a lot to animate, even though they didn't use much animation for that. But
considering they were also doing, not all the time, but fairly competent anatomy on the show. Not all the time, but there's quite a few shots that I was when I was rewatching the series going like, and I like the new cartoons and all, and I don't want the new cartoons to go away in trade for what it used to look like, but I also do want some shows that kind of act the way shows used to act like. So I do, you know,
Avatar and Korra, yeah.
that's what I'm saying is I dug it, and with Avatar and Korra, they were a little bit.
And also,
A little cartoony, a little anime mixed in with them, awesome. But I also kind of dug the fact that there were some cartoons where the characters were sort of illustrated as nearly real. They were still cartoon characters, but they were more real feeling. You know, G.I. Joe and He-Man, and I realize what I'm saying when I take the word realistic very lightly. But there was an attempt at making them more anatomical, more comparatively realistic, and I liked that. But I also don't want them to stop doing what they're currently doing, because it is awesome, and I really enjoy it.
it's funny. I was kind of the opposite. I love the cutesy, cartoony stuff.
So did I.
But on the same note, I wanted the cutesy, cartoony stuff to like blow the crap out of out of stuff. It's like I wanted Thundar and G.I. Joe
Yeah.
mixed with my Care Bears, which is why I do the stuff I do today. Because now I'm just like, I have the power to make that, so I am. Dang it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think and it's what I find tiresome about fanboy conversations. I just can't have myself really do it anymore. It's always about people wanting you to agree with them to the point of absurdity. And their one thing has to be the only thing that exists. I'm not saying that's across the board, but I've been in way too many of those conversations. And I'm of the opinion that I like variety. I like variety, and I like to see new things as often as possible. I realize it's not always possible, but give me new. And like when I first saw Adventure Time, I was like, I haven't quite seen this before. You know, I saw Steven Universe, I'm like, I really haven't seen this before. I'm getting a little more used to it now with She-Ra, but I always have to I always have like these criticisms that I know people aren't going to agree with. It's like, for example, no problem with the gender stuff, no problem with the sexuality stuff, as long as it's well done.
Yeah, as long as it's well done, it's done tasteful and respectful, and it's not mocking, and it's not one of those.
And it's not pandering
yeah,
either.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say pandering is they're not doing it for the sake of doing it. It's not token.
Well, like for example, I apologize if you're into Arrow and there might be some spoilers here. Last season of Arrow, there's this scene.
Oh yeah.
And I literally, it stopped me cold, not because of the content, but because it was just had no place in the scene. So I know this is messed up as this is. Arrow's future son comes back from the future. Comic book show comes back from the future. They're gonna go fight the big baddie. Yada yada. They rarely had a chance to talk. Father-son catch-up moment. I'm like, right on. If this is well written, this could be good. And the whole scene was there just so he could tell his dad that he was gay, which is fine. And the response from Arrow was nice, and it was nicely written. But it was entirely out of place in the story where it was at.
Yes.
It's like if you had just an episode where everyone was off by themselves and all the action was shut off and it was all just normal people time, it would have worked. But I just hit this moment where I just went, no, I'm cool with it, but this just felt forced, because it was like somebody took it and went, we got to do this scene, and stuck it into the scene, and I was going like,
Yeah, because it's like
it was weird.
been watching, and I've been listening to it, but you've been watching and paying attention to it for this the entire run, and there was nothing before.
I don't recall there
the
being
kid,
anything that really indicated that.
indicated that he would be gay,
Which is fine.
Yeah, and it's like there's no problem with it, but the fact that just out of nowhere,
It was super out of nowhere.
and it's like, okay, I've seen people shows do that where they're like, okay, the character's like, well, I'm gay, and it's like, okay, that's
Cool.
but this
right on,
one,
then involve that into the story.
well, and that's what I'm saying. It's like when they did it, there was at least something in the story. This is just it was just so
It was
out of
out of
field.
nowhere,
It
yeah.
was just so weird from this. It just kind of like it was like almost like they just like tacked it on a Post-it note.
Check
It
is what it felt like. They were
it's
checking
like,
something off the
here's
list.
Here's the
It
script,
was really strange.
and then they put a Post-it note on there going, "Oh, by the way, put this in."
Well, like for example, in the same series, what's his name? Mr. Terrific.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Terrific. They made him gay. The actor's really fun. There was a couple scenes where I went, same thing. It felt forced. I was like, But there were other scenes where they built it up, and there was some funny stuff happening because of it. I went, cool. And in one of the seasons, did I get the name right? Mark Summer from Beastmaster? Is that right? The guy that played Beastmaster, the original guy, I think it's Mark Summer, I think. Anyways, he played an older military villain guy on the show. So and you heard them saying this as he's walking away, and I don't forget how Beastmaster got brought up on the show, but he was like, oh, Beastmaster with, what was it? I think it's Mark Summer. It's like I started realizing some stuff when I saw that. And I was just laughing because I'm going like, okay, see, they worked it in, and it felt more natural. And I'm like, because he was like all muscly and sweaty and lean and jumping around with a sword, and I'm going like, I could see it. I could see some young guy going like, hey, right on. And so the actor was on the show, and they made a Beastmaster joke, and the whole thing, and it worked. And there were some scenes that it didn't. But with this character, there was very little anything, and then that came out of nowhere. And that's what I mean is, if you're going to do it right. And I'm not putting rules down. I'm just saying.
It just felt weird.
It did. That's my point. Is it felt pandering or strange? I didn't quite get it. I was like that. It felt forced, and it felt like somebody went check off of a list, and I was kind of like, no, seriously, I'm good. I'm not doing this as a virtue signaling thing. I'm doing this as a.
It's the same thing as yes, it was.
Yeah, so thank you. Good. I'm glad I wasn't the only one, because there's like a handful of scenes in shows that I can point out where it takes me out of the show. That was one of them. The last Avengers movie did it to me so hard that I went, what?
What happened with what part with the
Okay. The mega battle, right? You never take somebody out of a mega battle. I'm sorry, rule number 1, you just do not do it. And I could see this being reworked and working, but this didn't work. There was suddenly like the battle stops, all the women everywhere for no apparent reason show up in the same spot, including characters, Mantis, that are not physical fighters, all show up, get into a line, pose, and all look at each other like we're big, strong women. I'm all for female empowerment here. Girl power is really fun. This was not how it was done. I had this discussion at work, and some of the girls at work were going like, I didn't get that either. That was really bizarre. And the thing was, I'm not saying, don't you do it, it's not right. What I'm saying is, they could have written an infinitely more effective scene that didn't take me out, and I'm all like, I'm from the anime basis of entertainment. I love a good scene with chicks whooping butt, but it was like I'm gonna get the number wrong, but it was like 7 or 9 characters just showing, like everyone went, all right, big chaotic battle starting, girls, at 7:43. We're all going to show up at these coordinates, and we're going to pose. And I just sat there in the theater and went, what? It literally ripped me out of the movies. I'm going like, it was like a political thing where somebody went, girl power, check. And I'm like, no, do that stuff. But don't do it weird like that, where you're like, we're making a point. Don't do that. They could have totally been like, okay, Pepper Potts in the Iron Woman suit. I don't know the proper term for that, if there's a name for that suit, but like her Iron Man suit.
The mock. I'm blanking all over.
Yeah, but you know the one I'm talking about. That and like 2 or 3 other girls, and I'm thinking I'd love to see the Valkyrie. Valkyrie.
Yes.
Valkyrie. Valkyrie and her and 1 or 2 other heavy hitters. Probably Miss Marvel. And then one of the smaller ones that would just be kind of awesome. Just pick one. And and then somehow have it where they come together seemingly at random, where the scene is maybe 20, 30 seconds of the characters blending into the scene. And then you get to see these chicks whoop butt for 45 seconds, minute and a half, and you're like, yeah! But instead it was like, hey everyone, check this out! Wah, 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 wah. They'll pose, they'll look at each other, girl power time, let's go. And I just went, it totally threw me out. And that scene in Arrow did the same thing. And I'm not saying you can't do that, I'm saying do a good job. Mm-hmm. And it was weird. Yeah, they could have had different scenes right after another, and they could have built it up in a clever, more nuanced way. Or, which would have been sweet, have some of the guys get in trouble, not because, oh look, they're guys, they're gonna get in trouble, but like a legitimate battle sequence where they get like really boned and they're in trouble, and some of the chicks, to pick the right ones with the right powers, come in and save the day. Total girl power moment, totally sweet. You'd have this is my theory on fights. In a fight scene, there needs to be a beginning, middle, end. There needs to be stories within the fight. It's not just people punching. There's a story. Then there's another story. And it makes these interesting fights. And they did that a lot. But with that one, it was just sort of like a commercial break for a public announcement. It was really weird. And I just it just didn't work for me. And like that, in like Steven Universe, I don't think they ever did that to me, which is funny because it's a kid's cartoon. All of it just flowed together and worked. Adventure Time, I don't think they ever did that to me. Then you get this big stuff where they're trying to make like big political points, blah blah blah, and yet there's more sexuality and gender stuff in these kids' cartoons, where they're making far more nuanced points and showing characters and this and that, and they're not doing like these weird scenes where it's just like, check, we got that out of the way, and just like, and I mean, it's hard to get more, what's the right word? Well, Steven Universe, I mean, there's a whole lot in there where there's a ton of gender fluidity and sexualities, and they don't make a big deal about it.
Spoilers.
To be honest, there's a lot of really fun stuff. I missed the last 2 seasons of Arrow Universe. I'm kind of Arrow has been good. I can't speak of the others because I haven't seen everything yet. I do know that 3rd season of Legends of Tomorrow was amazing. I don't care about the rest of it. Season 3, and I think it was season 3. Amazing. It is ridiculous and over the top, and they were on point the whole time. It worked really well. The same season for Arrow, which I think is 4, that one, amazing. Like, I just was like, this is spot on, guys, don't do any more. But I haven't seen a lot of the newer stuff, so I can't say. Arrow, I wanted to see the last season of Arrow, so I've been watching it, and overall it's good. Mm-hmm. But there was that scene, I'm going like, guys, stop pushing agendas.
Yeah,
Stop pushing agendas.
Caught me off, because I normally just listen because I'm not really into the
sure.
stuff, so I'll listen while you have it on and all, but I'm like, okay, what happened? Okay, cool. And even that, when that happened, I kind of stopped and turned and was like, wait, where'd that come from?
I know, it was strange. And the thing is I someone's going to hit me with the, well, young gay people need a scene. But I'm like, I'm not arguing. I'm not making fun of. I'm saying, do it better so it means more. So, not only means something to them, it means something to potentially somebody that doesn't even understand that point of view. Write it really well. So somebody that might even hate that kind of person takes a moment and sees them as a person instead of these like weird checkbox political moments. And there's just stuff like that where I'm just going like, I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm saying if you're going to do stuff, do it well. And there's been a handful of scenes like I love, the girl empowerment, awesome ladies whooping butt stuff. I do. That is so much fun. But that scene and I know other, and I've had ladies go, oh, I thought that was awesome. I'm like, good. I'm not judging you. But I've also had other girls go, yeah, that was bizarre. So it's not just a boy thing. It's not just because of the dangly bits I got. So there was a number of people, women included, going like, what? Like for example, she's not at work anymore, but we had, she was a nice girl. She was super fun. I liked her. I didn't know her real well, but I liked her. And after Captain Marvel, not Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, she was like, and I was like, oh, well, what did you think? Because I hadn't seen it yet. She's like, oh, it was so empowering, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, huh. Because I don't think of this stuff in that way. I'm like, oh, empowering. So when I watched it, I'm like, oh, this is a fun movie, blah, blah, blah. I didn't think it was one of the strongest of them, but there was nothing wrong with it. It was fun. But I just sat there and went, empowering. I'm like, it just sort of shows that different people really look at it in different ways. I'm going like, so I don't want to sit there and go, you can't have it. I'm just saying, for me, some of the stuff just didn't work that well, and but yeah, that scene in Arrow, that was
Weird.
well, I put it on my list of do-gooders doing things weird. People like, well, we should really have more representation and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I agree. But make it good. Do you remember Ghostbusters Extreme from the 90s?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay, first of all, do not judge what I'm about to say. Hear the whole thing. Yeah, I believe it had the white guy, the black guy, the Hispanic chick, and the guy in a wheelchair. I think those were the 4 Ghostbusters. Firstly, I have 0 issues with a Hispanic chick on there, blah, blah, blah. I have 0 issues, technically, with a guy in a wheelchair on there. I'm like, if you write it well, maybe that could work. I don't think it would be great if he's rolling around with a wheelchair with a proton blaster shooting ghosts. That's where my disconnect was. But I'm like, okay. The weird thing was they took every opportunity to be like, this is him playing basketball. This is him achieving. This is it. I'm just, the whole time I'm going like, is this actually helping the kid out there who's a paraplegic watching this, going like, maybe I can, do all these ridiculous, over-the-top, excessive... It's like, well, maybe you can. I've seen guys in wheelchairs play basketball. But it was the fact that they were packing it all in constantly. And then they were like, female empowerment stuff, awesome. Packing it in constantly. And it was like, guys, make it natural. Make it well written. Make it so I can't roll my eyes when you do it and go like, really? I mean, I'm all for it, but if it's corny and weird, I just like, huh?
He's handy capable. Ugh.
It's like, no, I agree. I have no issues with people in wheelchairs or women or Hispanic people or fill the blank in. But don't just throw them in there because it's an easy thing to throw in to be like, check, now we're virtuous. It's like, come on, it still has to be well written. Because when it is well written, I'm like, I don't even notice it. And I go, okay, I do notice it, but I don't go like, ding. I just go like, nice. Like, that was well. But I also do it whenever a good story is told, period. Like, this is going to sound so ridiculous. And I mean, I get how ridiculous this sounds. I think Total Drama Island and all those shows, I know, but they show a far more natural mix of just different races and different cultures and different, people in this socioeconomic range all mixing together. And it's funny.
Weren't they all Canadian?
And it's Canadian. Yeah, it's absolutely Canadian.
The characters, weren't they? Well, the majority of the characters were
The majority are Canadian, but they're not all Canadian. Like, they've had Australian people. Matter of fact, the Australian one was one of my favorite characters.
Yeah.
And it's a farty poopy show. It's a farty poopy show. And it's like, guys, there's boob jokes and people eating bull testicles and stuff in this show. And it's doing a far more natural job of depicting this stuff. And I'm not saying it's hard. I'm just saying it has to be good. If you're not a good storyteller, how did you get a job being a storyteller? Do your craft. Be awesome. Be a good storyteller. Because if a fart show outdoes you, just saying, if a fart show outdoes you, there's a problem. And I ain't going to judge a fart show. Because I happen to rather like some fart jokes. Not all the time.
There's nothing wrong with a good fart.
There's nothing wrong with a good fart joke. You're right. All right, I think make her eyebrows a little more maniacal. Let's juice this puppy up. Did he just say he's gonna juice up Catra's puppies? My God, what kind of show is this?
80s.
It's an 80s show.
Duh.
There's lots of cat puppy juicing going on.
And speaking of, I am pleasantly stoked and cautiously optimistic about the new He-Man cartoon they have
I
planned so
am
far.
curious about that myself.
Yeah, I mean, they seem that. I mean, they.
Because, Kevin Smith is legitimately a big nerd. So he might do it right. And I don't know if this is one of his favorite shows from the old days or whatever.
Yes.
Hopefully it is.
From what I understand, yes.
Oh, good. So I have some faith. As long as there's love involved, and I'm not saying things can't change, but if things change, they need to change for a good reason. And there's a lot in He-Man that worked well, mainly because it's one of the few really campy shows that, frankly, is awesome because it is campy. It's like when people go like, "Well, I don't like Superman because he's too wholesome and blah blah blah." I'm like, "Well, then you don't understand Superman, do you? Because that's the point of that character." And He-Man, okay, the original like little comic version of him where he was like a Conan the Barbarian ripoff.
Right.
I kind of wish I could see that version animated, to be honest.
Well,
But the '80s He-Man was still awesome because
yeah.
it was actually worse than Superman, because with Superman, he took off glasses and was like, "I'm Superman," and then he'd run around the corner and be like, "Clark Kent," and everyone was like, "Hey Clark, did you see Superman?" And everyone's going like, "What?" Oh no, He-Man, he put on pink, and everyone was like, "Hey, giant Prince Adam, that looks exactly like He-Man in every way except for your pink tights and slightly lighter skin." I mean, they didn't even give him a mole or a mustache or something.
There was somebody did a comic regarding the Superman thing where Clark Kent comes in, he takes off his glasses, he puts them on the table, Lois walks by. When did we get this table? Has this table always been here?
Yep. See, it's to me, I think some people are not understanding context. It is okay to do really ridiculous stuff if it's consistent. And then the people walking in with the dumbest statement ever being like, "Didn't you know pro wrestling is fake?" Duh. No one cares. Didn't you know how stupid it is that Superman and Clark Kent look at it? No one cares. We get it. You know, it's just like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Have fun. Well, it's not my thing. Great. Don't watch it. This conversation just ended in a very easy way. Good for you. Well, I don't like blank. Good for you. I don't like how inexplicably homoerotic JoJo's Bizarre Adventures is. Then don't watch it.
Let's see. Al says he lost some nerd cred with me since he didn't play D&D until a couple years ago. Oh, come on, man! But he's
Not everyone can do it.
Well, to say I can. I'm okay. But you gotta at least make it up, though. I mean, the fact that he's been doing all this nerd stuff even before then.
He is a professional nerd. Got it? Yeah, he is. He writes stuff. He's actually, working on cartoons. He's made it way further than I have. I mean, I'm a cubicle donkey.
He actually has taken his love and made an actual viable living out of it.
Gotta give him credit.
With all the movies and with the comic shop he owned and all the podcasts
He has a
he's
lot of
done
nerd
and
credit.
all of especially his comic writing and stuff in general. I mean, he was writing like screenplays and comics before a lot of this stuff.
That's pretty significant. And I'm not like a huge Kevin Smith fan, so don't sit there going like, "Oh, you're just saying that because you like him." I'm like, "Yeah, he's cool."
Yeah,
But so's 1,000 other people, but he is a serious professional nerd. I mean, and there's stuff that he's done that I don't care for. That doesn't matter. It's, Okay, put it this way. This is going to sound kind of mean, but I don't mean it to be. This dude was fatter than I've ever been. And he has brought himself down to a weight that I am having a hard time getting to.
Yeah.
And he's a pot smoking nerd. I'm only assuming how much munchies that dude gets. That's got to be tough.
From one of the on his Fat Man on Batman, he was actually talking about that. He had to lose the weight because he was at some big shindig or something that was going on, and after he had done his thing, he's like he hadn't been feeling well most of the afternoon, and when he finished, he went backstage and immediately got like super sick and was like literally dripping sweat, and was actually had a heart attack.
Oh.
And they took him to the hospital and he nearly died. And so that's why he lost all that weight, because his doctor was like, you need to get healthy or you're not going to live.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, exactly why I'm trying to lose weight too is just, and I ain't judging any heavy people out there. I really am not. It's your biz. It's your business. There's also anatomy and all sorts of thousands of other things. I, however, would love to not be chunky anymore. And a lot of it is, I ain't going to be a pretty young thing anymore. I get it. Would sure be nice, though, just to be as healthy as possible for the rest of my life. So.
Yeah, I hear you. Same here. I mean, unfortunately, with all the stuff that I had to deal with over the past, 7-8 years or so, I've put on quite a bit of...
You've been through some things, so...
Yeah. And so it's like, I'm trying my best to get up off my butt and stop the damage that's already trying to make its way through here, but happy thoughts, other stuff.
So what's for dinner tonight? Steak, sandwich between 2 ice cream sandwiches.
Smothered in cheese.
Smothered in deep fried cheese.
With a Diet Pop.
With a side of Wisconsin cheese soup. What is wrong with the person that created that?
The beer soup, the beer cheese
the
soup.
The beer cheese soup.
That was crazy. I took one bite of it. I was just like, wow.
I took one bite. I enjoyed one bite. Then the second bite, I couldn't. And then the third bite, my body just went, "You're gonna stop it!" Like, oh. I'm gonna stop this. This is not. I'm glad I got a cup.
There was
not a bowl.
a story I read this morning. Apparently, somebody stole a truck full of Wisconsin cheese.
That person ain't gonna be pooping for a while.
I'm like, what do you do with that? It was like,
What don't you do with that? Can you imagine the fondue hot tub you could make? Seriously. Fondue hot tub.
Is that like the sequel to that hot tub time machine?
No, mine's better. Because I say so. Yeah, I hear you, man. It's tough. You've been through some stuff, and weight gain and weight loss is hard. It's not impossible, but it's, you know, hard. I feel you, man. The funny thing is, some of it gets a little easier once I changed a couple of my habits, like and I'm not telling you what to do. I only drink pop now as a treat, so I have like 2 liters of pop a year now. Stuff like fried chicken, I don't have anymore, and I love fried chicken. Except I set a date, and then on that date once a year, we go. We just pig. We pig down on fried chicken, but the rest of the year, zero. You know, and
Unless we, like, it's usually on vacation, and when we're on vacation.
well, it's at the beginning of
yeah.
vacation. I begin my summer vacations with fried chicken. That is a way to start a summer
And
vacation.
then for the next 2 weeks, for those 2 weeks, we are just dangerous to ourselves.
Well, we've gotten better. We still treat ourselves, but we keep it under control.
Yeah.
Like right now, we've got a pack of ice cream sandwiches, but once that's done, it's I'm not having any real desserts for a while. I learned how to cook egg white good, so it's tasty. Seriously increased my vegetable intake and decreased my meat. Haven't gotten rid of it, and the meat that I eat is leaner. Blah 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 blah. You go down the list. There's a lot there,
Right.
but once you get used to it, and not all at once, that's the problem. People, I think, try to do like a massive just change, and not all at once. So the first thing I did was the pop, and then I did like I got pop once a month, you know, like during movie night, and then eventually after about a year or so of that, which was tough, but I was able to get pop. Then I turned it into, okay, like when we go out to the movies, I get a pop, which we don't go out to the movies that often. So,
Right.
you know, I don't get a ton of sweets and desserts. I get a little bit every once in a while, like summertime got some ice cream sandwiches. But then like on my birthday, oh yeah, on my birthday, we're talking like $20 desserts. We're talking like the big freaky something's wrong with me for eating it desserts. So I have something to look forward to, but the rest of the time I have to behave,
Yep.
you know.
Fight.
But yeah, I find that if you choose one thing and then you get used to it, click. All right, I'm used to that. Now the next thing, click. Next thing, click. And it did. It took me about 4 or 5 years because my brain kept rebelling. So I had to go, okay, one thing at a time, make this work. I have potato chips every once in a while, and it's the kettle ones, so they have no cholesterol. I don't have popcorn like I used to, smothered in butter and salt. Oh,
Down, boy.
I know. I miss that so much. I miss that. But I rarely have that. And like when we go and do like a really big like anniversary movie or something, then that's when I get the big tub with the butter. The rest of the time, I don't get it. And And the thing is that's not exactly something that caused me to lose weight. That caused me to stop gaining weight, and made it so that when I could lose weight, like when I'm getting the exercise in or when I'm eating really healthy, that I'm not counter reacting it with, like, soda pop and deep fried yard bird and
So you just picked up an old southern term.
I know.
Yardbird.
was watching something recently where they said that and it just got stuck in my head. What was it? Oh, I think it was that History of American Food with KFC. Yardbird.
I think I heard my dad use that term a couple of times. Yardbird, get the yardbird. Of course, when we fry up chicken.
Well, it was actually part of the history, is they were making a big deal about it. Is they're like, when people started moving to cities, like really poor people could still get a hold of a couple chickens and stuff, and so you still had the ability to get eggs every day, and you still had the ability that when you had enough chickens that a couple times a year you could still kill yourself a yard bird and have yourself some chicken.
Right.
But in the cities there was no way of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just going like, I've never been of that because, I'm not from that time period. I'm not. We never kept chickens and stuff, so it sounds weird to somebody who doesn't do it. But then I was going like, how nice must that be? Where you have enough land and stuff where even if you don't do a ton of gardening and stuff, you can still have a few things that's easy to do. I'm like,
Well, remember when one time when I was taking you to work and you're just like, hey, there's some chickens running around there on one of the side streets. And I was like, wait, what? Chicken? Really?
popcorn, no salt is my go. Yeah, that's one of the ones I do too. Especially if you get a really good, where the hot toasty cornness is still in the popcorn. Oh, that's good stuff.
One of the little kids across the street. So the family went to that Choo Choo restaurant.
The which restaurant?
The Choo Choo restaurant. They hand out free train whistles to all the kids. And for the past 10 minutes, all I've been hearing is... See? Listen.
I thought that was a squeaky set of brakes on a car.
Nope, that's some kid.
Here at Choo Choo, we hate the parents. Have a whistle, kid.
Instead of Jimmo in the background. Nope, that's Eric's eraser.
Yep.
Apparently they took the kids to the Choo Choo. Yep.
got yakking so much, I think I fell behind on the sketch a little bit.
I was saying, you're going pretty long on this one. You're at about an hour and a half now.
Well, I come to the conclusion that, and I'm not complaining for those of you who do show up, that I'm not doing enough somehow in one fashion or another for people to be showing up. So I'm trying to figure out what kinds of sketches, and I was like, well, perhaps some of my sketches were a little too simple, and I may not, and I could definitely be going in and doing a little bit more in that arena. So yeah, I'm exactly the generation right before understanding how all the internet stuff properly works. It's like I was there for the internet, but not the current, social incarnation of it. And I'm still trying to figure out, honestly, how to make people, again, not judging anyone, make people care. Because very few people show up, and those who do, I'm really appreciative of. But what's really weird is, we had one guy, and I mean, I forget which sketch this was. This was a little ways back. He was into the conversation. We were talking back and forth, and all sorts of crazy stuff was happening. Very much like Al here, and he just showed up once and then never again. I was going I thought maybe we could start building, and it was that worked out really, and then gone. I was like, oh.
Well, from what I understand, he was European, and so I think it was late at night, early in the morning over there. So,
Oh.
yeah.
That would explain his knowledge of the color avocado.
I have no idea what that means, but alrighty.
I remember that roughly being part of the conversation we were having.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember it.
We were talking, if I recall correctly, about ugly 70s kitchen colors.
Oh, okay, yep. Yes. Yeah, but he was saying a lot of the places over there had, right? If I'm not mistaken, had that color or had the colors or something like that.
Harvest orange and blah, blah, blah.
Harvest orange, goldenrod, avocado, yeah.
Avocado. Yeah, hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. Is that a Dremel in the background? It darn near is a Dremel. Guys, just an electric eraser. And, yeah. It seems like a ridiculous thing to do, but once you start using them to clean up drawings, suddenly you're like, oh, this is way better. You don't want to get rid of the manual ones because you could just do, but that thing is, it's an erasing Dremel basically. I know, right? This is funny. I always joked about it. Makes me feel like a real man with a garage with power tools. It's like, I've got all your kind of classic guys in my family with the garages and the tools, and which is awesome, and this is the closest I get. What are you gonna do? All right, next week I'm gonna do the modern Catra, which I actually like quite a bit. Actually, I liked her even more from Final Season, where they gave her the different haircut. I don't know. I'm not sure why, but she has that boyish pixie cut, and it's just kind of kind of cool. I liked it for some reason.
I'm still trying to figure out if I like it or not.
I like it because she's got like the freckles and like the off-kilter smile, and she's just got a sort of this neat level of character. Not to say that she's like remotely revolutionary or anything, but they kind of, you look at her like, oh, there's not a lot of characters that look exactly like that. So
Yeah, and I didn't really care for her initial Wild Hare look in
well,
the first place.
I think they were trying to match her up to this design a little bit with that. And I thought there were scenes where it worked well, and there were other scenes where I was like, but I kind of like this sort of this pixie cut. But
Yeah.
anywho,
Yeah.
anywho, see if I can do this right. Okay, I'm going to blah blah. There we go. Clean off the thing. So I throw eraser shavings everywhere. And get this all. Whoop, there we go. All right. Now comes my weekly game. Can Eric do this
Will it blend?
in one shot? Oh, feeling lucky. Feeling lucky. Will it work? Will it work? My God, it might. It might just make some adjustments. Might just work. Might just. Oh! Oh, not as smooth as sometimes, but it closed. I can just feel them in there. Tightly packed together.
Sounds weird.
There's nothing weird about it. Just embrace it. Just embrace it.
I'm an adult. I am an adult.
I am an adult. Anywho, catch y'all later. Thanks for showing up, man. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. Say my thing, man. It's alright, man. Honestly, I think anything people these days can do just to be like a little bit more themselves. You know, Alfredo's an awesome name. And it's also one of my favorite sauces. It is. What do you want me to sit there and lie? I'm not going to lie about that.
You dork.
It's awesome.
You're such a dork.
Anywho, we will catch you guys later, and you have yourself